Hey, folks. So, a while back, I did a video about guilty pleasure games. Video games that have kind of like a bad rep, or they got like bad reviews or whatever, or they're notoriously bad, but they're games that I kind of enjoyed, and well, still do. But ever since then, I wanted to do more videos on that subject. Not just like video games, but other things related to video games. So in this case, we're going to do controllers. Now, before I get into the consoles that I actually own, there's one that I'm going to do as kind of an honorable mention. That's the Atari Jaguar, a console I don't own, never did, and actually never even played one. But with the Jaguar, Atari's final console, unless you count the VCS thing they came out with like last year or whatever, but um, it's like the thing with that controller is, first of all, it's very bulky. It's like pretty much just bigger than the console almost. And then it has, you have the D-pad and the buttons and everything, like the stuff or whatever, and then you also have like all the little numerical buttons, which, well, that was still a thing in the early 90s, I don't know, but one thing I knew is that some of the games actually use like an overlay, which was very common like for consoles in the 80s, like the ColecoVision and Television and all that jazz. A lot of that stuff was before my time, even though I did play an Atari I think at my grandmother's house or something, like when I was a kid in the early 90s, but Atari 2600, that is. But it's funny, I think I have kind of a soft spot in my heart for those overlay type things. I think it's because of like when I was a kid and they had like those, they were more common like in the 80s, but some of it kind of ran into the 90s, or if it was something that like my siblings who were older had, and that we still had it as I got older, was those type of toy electronic devices that like from like Sesame Street and Peanuts and stuff that would use like those little overlay things. But anyway, that's why those things are kind of like a guilty pleasure of mine. I think it's kind of takes you back to childhood, but like I said, I know the Jaguar uses the overlay for some of those. For example, the Jaguar version of Doom, it you have an overlay for the numerical buttons that's like all the different and it's like the overlay is pictures for all the different guns. Like, so it's like, okay, you push this button for the chain gun, this one for the rocket launcher, this one for the chainsaw. Like, I was like, okay, that's actually kind of cool. Even though, like I said, I've never owned a Jaguar or anything, but now we're going to move on to the consoles I do own for guilty pleasure controllers. So we'll start with probably one of the most infamous, the N64. Now, probably the most common thing with the N64 controller is the fact that, the analog stick, it's so faulty, like it's basically wears out over time. And it's funny, it's like how you're not supposed to like, the stick is like very sensitive, and it's funny when you think about it that a number of the first party games had games where you'd have to twirl the analog stick or pull it back and then let go, like so it would snap back and forth. These were games like Pokemon Stadium, the Mario Party games, hell, even Super Mario 64, which launched with the system. You had to twirl the analog stick to throw Bowser, or to build up the throw, whatever. And it's like, I don't know. Another thing was that it's weird how it's like, there's just the shape of it, how it's like different ways to hold it, which honestly I think that is kind of cool, like how there's like different ways to hold it for different games. I always kind of like that idea. And even though, like I said, it can get kind of awkward, it's like, it's funny, like, someone should like do like a Photoshop of this, or like print it onto a t-shirt or something of Goro from Mortal Kombat, since he has 4 arms, holding, him holding an N64 controller, like all 3 handles, with 3 of his hands. Like I said, someone should make a t-shirt of that or something. But another thing that's weird is this, because it uses directional buttons, which makes it a little it's hard to go back and play games like Turok and stuff because we're so used to using the 2 analog sticks to move and turn and everything. The other thing is, where was I going with this? But one thing I loved about the controller was the various amount of colors. Like, the system came bundled with the gray. Then there was also black, green, red, yellow, and blue. Then there was the a translucent purple one that came bundled with like a special N64 controller. Then they made made translucent consoles with the matching controller. There was green, which it was green, purple, blue, which is actually what this controller is from, because you could buy the controller sold separately too. Orange, gray, or black, and I think the other one was pink. And each of them had like a different name. Like green, which is the one I have, was called Jungle. Blue was ice. Black or gray was smoke. Orange was fire. Pink was watermelon. And purple was grape. But yeah, like I said, you could buy these controllers separately too. And I think there was others too, other than just like the 12 controllers that I mentioned with the various colors. And it's funny, ever since I was a kid, I remember when this was, when I first saw a picture of controllers in Nintendo Power and Game Pro and stuff, I was like, that looks like a spaceship. In fact, I was like, I swear that looks like something from Star Trek. Which is funny because I was never really a big fan of Star Trek, even though I liked some of the ships and stuff. Like one of them, I think it was a Klingon, but I'm not sure. Like this ship, for example. Tell me that doesn't kind of look like an N64 controller. See the but yeah, like I said, overall, analog sticks faulty, but still a pretty interesting controller. Next is the Dreamcast, Sega's final console. A lot of people were never really a big fan. The controller, the Dreamcast controller, is something that some people love it, some people hate it. I don't hate it. I just think it's kind of awkward. Well, obviously I don't hate it since this is a guilty pleasure video, but yeah, it does get quite a bit of hate, so to speak. There's I think it's just because it's kind of an awkward design. For example, why does the cord come out the bottom opposed to the top? Which, granted, you can clip it onto that, but it's still kind of awkward. Plus, but yeah, again, when you play, it has directional buttons for first-person shooter games, which is a pain in the ass. No select button, but it's still a pretty interesting controller. I love it has a nice feel to it when you hold it. It's kind of hard to explain. Maybe if you've played the Dreamcast, you probably know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's just I don't know. It's this the little grippy things here on the side. It feels right when you hold it. Wow, that sounded kind of yeah. Also, I love how the whole the way the memory cards work. You can actually have 2 in there at a time, or a rumble pack, or the speaker thing for not the speaker, the microphone or whatever. Similar to the N64 controller, and it was also kind of cool how the memory cards, how it had the little screen on there, and you could see little pictures depending on the game and stuff, or sometimes they were a little innovative and stuff. The next one is the Xbox 360. I think the reason a lot of people hate this one is because of the D-pad, which it is really weird. It's compared to let me go back to the other two, for example. You look at the N64 controller, the D-pad, which is pretty much the same as the SNES and the NES. Hell, even the Dreamcast one is kind of the same idea, but you see, well, where's the, I don't know how well you can see it, but it's the D-pad on this, it's basically one big round button, and then the D-pad is on top of it, so it's, I don't know, it's just really weird. It's when you're trying to do if you're playing a fighting game, you're trying to do, maybe that's what they were going for, maybe they thought it would be easier to do a down forward type of thing for fighting games or something, but I don't know, it just feels weird. But I love this controller. It's just, Honestly, me personally, I think this is like the most comfortable controller ever made. Like, it just fits in your hand so well. Like, D-pad, you know, like I said, is really wonky and shit, but it it feels right. Like, it just, I don't know how to explain it. Like, other than that, it just feels right. It sounds like saying it just feels right. Sounds like Lita's old, you know, the wrestler Lita, her entrance theme. But yeah. Finally, we have the Wii U gamepad, which is reflecting off my screen tablet that I'm recording on. This was basically like a giant tablet, which I actually have this Nerf protective case thing on it, so yeah, I'm not gonna take that off right now, but yeah, this thing is, again, it's very bulky and it's just very awkward and stuff. Like, especially, I remember one time I was playing Splatoon when my sister came over and she said, "What the hell is that thing?" I was like, "Oh, this is Nintendo's new console," because that was the thing. Like, you know, I mean, not going into the detail of how the Wii U failed and everything, because how it was marketed and everything, but yeah, it was just a very awkward controller, because it was literally the size of the console, for one thing. It was basically just a big tablet, you know, and it worked well for some games, like how you used the double screen. Like, for example, Star Fox Zero, you used the double screen thing, but for most games it's pretty unnecessary. Like one game, Zombie U, was kind of cool. How it was like you could use it if you were looking for your items in your backpack. You'd go use this to look at the items, and then you could look at the TV to see if there was like any zombies coming after you or something. Like, you know, this would be, you'd use this to be looking through your items, but then on the TV, you could like still see all around you and stuff. Like you'd see the character, like third person view or whatever. Yeah, I'm trying to chew on the cord. But overall, it was very, and oddly enough, this controller is actually very comfortable. Cause, like I said, even though it's awkward, it's kind of comfortable. Maybe I'm just, it's funny, I've never really had a problem with controllers, like adjusting to them and everything. They always kind of just meld to me, so to speak. What this cat is doing over here. But yeah, like, again, awkward controller, but very comfortable and very unique for that matter. You know, and it works pretty well for, like, you know, some of the more gimmicky games and stuff, but for most things it's not necessary. But yeah, those are just some of my guilty pleasure controllers that I mentioned, you know, the ones I own, and then plus the honorable mention. What are some guilty pleasure controllers of yours? You know, whether you own them or not. You know, maybe it's one you own or you've played. Maybe it's one you've never played before, but you'd love to try. Let me know in the comment section below. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and as always, thanks for watching.